The old Trudeau Liberals and a new Trump administration. A look at the big files for Canada's most important relationship. This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow.
The top news stories
and conversations that matter to you.
This is Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
Political weeks don't come much bigger than what this week had to offer. Donald Trump's win in the American presidential election sent shockwaves around the world. And they were certainly felt here in Canada, where the current government, the Trudeau Liberals, set out to convince Canadians that everything is under control, and they saw this coming. To that end, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is reviving a cabinet-level panel on Canada-U.S. relations. It will be chaired by the Deputy Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance, Chrystia Freeland, who spent a long time in the United States as a journalist, a news executive, and a political commentator. At a news conference in Ottawa this week, the day after U.S. Election Day, Freeland was asked about one of the big issues, Trump's promise to impose tariffs. Freeland noted that the Trudeau government reached a free trade deal with the United States before. In fact, she called it Trump's deal.
I do take everything that President Trump says very seriously. I think we need to. That's why we have been very, very conscientious, very systematic about maintaining our relationship, maintaining our lines of communication with the Trump team. We had some very intensive times together. We had some tough moments, but at the end of it, working with President Trump and his team, we renegotiated our trade agreement with the United States, the fundamental governing deal of our trade with the U.S. The deal that we now have that governs our economic relationship with the United States is Donald Trump's deal. He signed it. He and his team negotiated it. He is proud of it, and I think he's right to be proud of it.
Chrystia Freeland also claimed that Canada has leverage when it comes to dealing with the Trump administration in any trade negotiations.
The fact is, Canada is different from the rest of the world when it comes to the U.S. We are the single biggest export market for the U.S., bigger than China, Japan, and the U.K. combined. That means that gives us leverage. That gives us some real power in that relationship. It is also the case that our relationship with the United States is uniquely mutually beneficial. We build things together, and Canadian workers do not undercut U.S. workers. We have similar labor and environmental standards, and we are both high-wage countries. These fundamentals are really, really important and are the basis of the good relationship we have in the past and of the good relationship that we will maintain and build into the future.
There are other concerns aside from trade. Another big one is immigration. Given Donald Trump's promise to deport millions of illegal immigrants, there is concern that could cause a flood of asylum seekers to seek refuge in Canada at a time when the Canadian government is trying to reverse course on its intake of immigrants and refugees. The loudest voices raising concerns are coming from Quebec, both from Premier Legault and the leader of the Bloc Québécois, Yves-François Blanchet. Blanchet noted this week that any asylum seeker crossing into Canada at a place like Roxham Road can make an asylum claim here as long as they go undetected for 2 weeks.
And I remember the faces of the ministers yesterday when I said, after 2 weeks being on the territory in a proven fashion, pre-Roxham applies. The faces changed. They didn't know that. So I will try to explain that to you in English. Won't be easy. And after probably in French. If somebody enters the territory, hides, as a proof of the moment he entered the territory, newspaper, picture, something clear, after 2 weeks, this person comes out of being hidden and says, I want asylum in Canada. And the same thing as what happened for years at Roxham Road starts all over again. And we get informations on an hourly basis of organizations which are now preparing for this flow of people that will want to enter Canadian and Quebec territory in the coming weeks and months. And the answer given by Mr. Leblanc is that, no, it is not a serious issue at all. Once again, the government is refusing to acknowledge an obvious, very serious situation.
Mark Miller, the immigration minister, has been seriously trying to downplay any concerns about a problem at the border and a new influx of asylum seekers from the United States. He was asked about this possibility on Tuesday before he knew the outcome of the election.
We've always been able to manage the border with the U.S., especially during, and particularly during COVID, and particularly with some odd attempts to put the military on the border, close it, do all sorts of things. It didn't make sense, and we just talked to it. It's in both our countries' interest to have a well-managed northern border and a northern hemisphere that is as impermeable as possible. So we'll always be working with whoever's there.
The Winnipeg Sun is reporting today that the reeve of a rural border community in Manitoba called Emerson Franklin is calling on the RCMP and the Trudeau government to outline a plan on how they'll cope with a potential influx of asylum seekers. Emerson Franklin is home to another border crossing. Reeve Dave Carlson told the newspaper there was a significant surge in crossings in Emerson in 2016, 2017, and 2018, soon after Donald Trump was elected president for the first time back in 2016. Before the Trudeau government closed the Roxham Road crossing, approximately 113,000 people crossed into Quebec from the United States. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know on News Radio.
Critical thinking is not dead.
Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Returns on News Radio.
With our expert in communications, crisis communications, political communications, branding, and leadership. I think we're going to touch on all of these today. Barry McLaughlin is the president of TLC, Transformational Leadership Consultants. He lectures at the Telfer School of Management at the University of Ottawa and at the MBA program at the Shannon School of Business at Cape Breton University. Welcome back, Barry.
Thank you, Rob. Great to be with you.
Well, you're going to get the last word, I think, of the week on the outcome of the U.S. election. So give us your take. Why did Trump win and why did Harris lose?
Well, I guess the first thing is to say that the Harris campaign was always going to be behind the eight ball. I mean, just over 100 days to campaign, popped into it, handed a gift by President Biden, but didn't really earn it, the sense of going out into primaries and so on. There was not an open convention. So she wasn't really that well prepared, but in spite of that, managed to pull off a fairly decent campaign. I think, secondly, the mood of the electorate was, I think, very underestimated by the Democrats. I mean, they were talking about issues, from democracy to reproductive rights to Ukraine and so on, when the average American really is very worried about their pocketbooks, is very, very worried about affordability, housing, and so on. And Trump seemed to just play into that. And thirdly, mystifyingly, in many ways, with his, personal record, his personal conduct, his impeachments and convictions and indictments, somehow that didn't seem to matter very much in the end. So it really was a mix of these elements. And, you can't blame the voters. The voters voted. And they knew mostly what they were voting for, or at least they had the perception of what Trump stood for. They had they wanted strength. They wanted a strong leader, and they're going to get one. Whether he is the kind of leader that others want, obviously not. But in fact, that that is what democracy is all about. And I really admired both President Biden and Kamala Harris in their speeches afterwards, in which they did talk about the importance of democracy, the importance of accepting the election results, even if you don't like them, all aimed at Trump from 2020. And so I think it really was democracy in action. And yes, it's extremely imperfect. And what was Churchill's line? It's the worst form of government, with the exception of all the others.
Right.
It really is. It really is democracy. And so people have to somehow, swallow the emotionalism around it, and then try to find a balance in their minds that they can move forward constructively. I think that's really what we're called upon to do.
Okay, I'd like to kind of go off in another direction here, and I want to ask you about Wayne Gretzky.
Yeah.
He attended a victory party at Mar-a-Lago for Donald Trump, and there's a picture of him wearing a MAGA hat. Now, it's a white MAGA hat, not a red MAGA hat. I would just point that out. But Canadian icon, Canadian hero. He's never been shy about the fact that he leans to the right. He endorsed Stephen Harper for Prime Minister in 2015. You remember he spoke at Brian Mulroney's funeral.
Yep.
But it's also a fact that when Canadian pollsters ask Canadians about Donald Trump, they don't really like the guy.
Yeah.
I ask this because you and I often talk about brands, and I think about Wayne Gretzky, the great one, 99. He's a brand.
Yeah.
He's a brand in Canada. He's on TV these days promoting a Rex fee. People have seen that ad. Gretzky? No, a Retzky, right?
Yep.
He does the Tim Hortons commercials.
Yep.
So I want to ask you, just in light of this, if you were a CEO, would you second guess having Wayne Gretzky as a paid spokesperson because of this, because of his political views?
I guess I'll simply say I would hope not. I would hope that we still live in a country where you're allowed to have your political opinions. You're allowed to have friends. We don't have to agree with your political choices and who your friends are. I think corporations are always protecting their brands. They're very sensitive to attacks based on that. I think it would take a massive. I think if I don't know who all of them are by name, but I think if they started to do that, it would backfire on them and would not work. So I don't think they're going to do it. But the very fact that it's politically incorrect, I guess, for people to, when people condemn him for his political choices, I think this is, again, part of freedom, part of democracy, part of, what, I don't agree with you, but I'll fight to the death your right to have those opinions. And that's really what the core values are of Canada. People often forget. I only want to allow those people who agree with my political views to be on television, to support their people, their favorites in election campaigns. I hope we don't get to that. I mean, it's always edging towards it. There's always a temptation towards it, and I hope we nip it in the bud.
Right. So if Tim Hortons, for example, came out and said, well, because of Wayne Gretzky and the whole thing, we're not going to have him promote our products anymore. You think that there'd be more blowback on Tim Hortons than Wayne Gretzky, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
Let's do a cleansing of all these sports stars, and let's find out who they're really for, who their political favorites are, and then we'll cull that list. We'll kick them out. We'll shame them. I hope we're not going to go there, and I don't believe Tim Hortons is that thick that they would do that. I don't believe they will.
Right. No. Okay. Interesting, though. Okay, when we come back, Crisis Communications 101 for an elementary school in Nova Scotia. What would Barry's advice be? This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow. It's News Radio.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
Back with Barry McLaughlin from TLC Transformational Leadership Consultants, who teaches crisis communications and has been in some real life situations over the years. Barry, my goodness, going viral for all the wrong reasons is kind of the thing. So here's the scenario. You're the principal of an elementary school, Sackville Heights in Nova Scotia. And you send out a notice to the community about Remembrance Day ceremonies, and it says veterans should not come to the school Remembrance Day ceremony in uniform, with the medals and the ribbons and everything, because of student diversity. And they want everybody to feel comfortable. The premier, Tim Houston, is in an election campaign right now, takes to Twitter and absolutely slams the school. And there's outrage all across the country. In fact, Premier Houston spoke about this today at a campaign event. Let's listen to a little bit of Premier Tim Houston of Nova Scotia.
Today, students across the province will participate in Remembrance Day services in school. This is an important tradition we must keep so students understand our history and value the sacrifices made by our men and women who served. Yesterday, I learned that a school in our province had asked veterans and members of the Canadian Armed Forces not to wear uniforms to the school's Remembrance Day ceremony. Thankfully, once we drew attention to the matter, this poor decision was reversed. But the fact that it happened to begin with is certainly a concern to me.
Okay,
I can't actually fathom how it is.
That's good. So the school, the principal reversed the decision, issued a statement, apologized, offered an explanation. How did the principal of this little elementary school in Nova Scotia handle this, in your opinion?
Well, after making this terrible error, and I'll come back on why I'm saying that, he did the right thing of, turning around and canceling it. I'm wearing two hats when I say this. So the first hat I'm going to wear is as an educator. That's what I do for a living, whether it's with companies and government officials or whether it's with universities. And I always say, when events come up, when issues come up, when Remembrance Day comes up, that is a learning opportunity for children in an elementary school. Let's not pretend it's called Peace Day. Let's not pretend it's something else. Let's really talk about what is it, why we have it, and so on. I think you have to demystify, especially young children. I don't blame them, especially those coming from other countries or the refugees, immigrants. I get that. There can be a fear, whoops, these men in uniform coming marching down my street. I understand that, actually. I lived in Northern Ireland. I've seen it with my own eyes. I know what it means. And I understand it and appreciate it. But it needs to be an educational opportunity, not let's just pretend, not by, don't wear a uniform. The second hat I'm wearing when I talk about this is my dad was in the RAF in the war. He was in the RCAF. We lived on Air Force bases across this country. And there they are in Halifax, Nova Scotia, where we are being listened to right now. And not too far away in the Annapolis Valley is 14 Wing Greenwood. And every day, crews get on board those Aurora and they go hundreds of miles across the Atlantic in horrible weather, conducting sovereignty and surveillance missions. They do search and rescue in the worst conditions, and they're wearing a uniform when they do it. And to say to them, oh, by the way, come to our school, but don't wear that uniform. There's something profoundly insulting about that at the deepest level. And I have to contain myself when I say this. This isn't a minor mistake on the principal's part. I think that the school board has to get involved with this and say, we don't want this popping up everywhere. There is a reason why we honor veterans. And I don't mean just for World War II and so on. I mean today's veterans, okay? They got in uniform, they kissed their spouses and kids goodbye, and they flew out to Afghanistan, okay? And 158 of them didn't come back. And I think we need to think about them. I'm sorry to be so emotional about this, but it is that deep, and you cannot be, the child of a veteran and ignore this. This is so profoundly wrong, and I'm very glad he corrected his error, but we need to learn from this error.
All right. Very well said. Love the passion, Barry. Thank you. Thank you. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Rob.
Barry McLaughlin, TLC, Transformational Leadership Consultants. This is News Radio.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
Well, he's been minding Ottawa's business all week long. We have a lot to talk about this week with Tom Korski, the managing editor at Blacklock's Reporter. Welcome back.
Thank you, Rob.
Well, more problems for Randy Boissonnault. There's a news report. I'm going to read the lead from the news report. Quote, a company that belonged to Federal Employment Minister Randy Boissonnault said it was Indigenous owned while bidding on federal contracts, while Boissonnault, who at the time co-owned Global Health Imports, has said in the past he is Indigenous. He recently stated publicly that he is white. So this goes to this story that you've covered. Your bureau on the Hill has covered this committee, Government Operations and Estimates, that's been digging into this problem of pretendian businesses bidding on federal contracts. And now it seems to have ensnared an already scandal-plagued cabinet minister. What has this committee uncovered so far, and where do you think this investigation could go next, Tom Korski?
Well, they've determined it's a real racket. How does it work? There's about 36, let's call it rounded off to $40 billion a year in government contracts go out federally every year, about $40 billion. And there's a policy goes back many years that says about 5% ought to be set aside for Indigenous-owned businesses. And you have to register on a registry. It's called the Indigenous Business Registry. And then you identify yourself as Indigenous. And the idea is to spread the wealth so that the same big general contractors and corporations don't get the money year after year. Problem. They're scamming it, and we know that. Who says that? The Assembly of First Nations. There was absolutely blood-curdling testimony from a regional chief, New Brunswick regional chief, Joanna Bernard. What did she tell MPs? I quote her accurately. She said, "I'm sorry to say you can pick up someone on the side of the street if they're Indigenous. They become that token Indian, and there's no qualification needed for that Indigenous person. In other words, you set up a shell company. In the case of the allegations of Boissonnault, you call yourself First Nations, Métis, or Inuit, whether you are or not, or you get one of the First Nations, Métis, or Inuit members to sit on your board, call him managing director, so you can cash in on the 5% of $40 billion. You know how scammy it is. There are thousands of Indigenous-owned companies in our country that make money every year. The vast majority are not even on this registry. Oh, it's three-card Monte. Anything goes, Rob.
With Mr. Boissonnault being a cabinet minister, what are the rules and regulations about him owning a business that is allowed to bid on government contracts at all, Tom?
You can't. And he has owned a 50% share in this company, Global Health Imports. The most generous interpretation of Boissonnault's role is the Minister of Employment. There's strict laws of Parliament of this. Obviously, you cannot sit in secret council as a member of cabinet and then trade on private business at the same time. The advantage is obvious. It's called the Conflict of Interest Act. The most generous interpretation for Mr. Boissonnault is he fell into company with bad friends, and they led him astray. The problem that Boissonnault has is every time he tells his story, and he's testified numerous times, Rob, he doesn't tell the whole truth. So he'll say, I had nothing, so help me. I had nothing to do with this company after I went back into cabinet in 2021. What do MPs find? A phone call he made to his managing partner. And Boissonnault say, well, there was that one call, but that was it. It was just a one, and I regretted it at the time. No, nothing more. And then they'll find text between him and his little buddy in Edmonton. The company was paying him $200,000 a year in management fees, not too shabby. Boissonnault's story keeps changing. It leads MPs to believe, I don't want to use rough language, that he's not telling the whole truth and may be a habitual liar when it comes to his private business interests.
Okay. Let's move along. The government, we learned this week more about its plan to impose an oil and gas emissions cap on that industry. Now, the Natural Resources Minister, along with the Environment Minister, Mr. Guilbeault, but Jonathan Wilkinson claims, the oil and gas emissions cap is going to be a job creator. It will create thousands and thousands of jobs in the new green economy. But what does the Department of the Environment say?
Well, they had draft regulations, and sad news. Wilkinson is wrong, or he's being misleading, or he doesn't understand what the regulations mean, or maybe he didn't read the 140-page draft that we did. When he says jobs, 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 what did the draft say? Well, sure, there may be some net gains, but that's kind of touch and go. It depends on the marvels of science in the 21st century. What's the immediate effect? You're going to lose up to an average as high as 1.6 to 2% of the payroll in the oil and gas industry. That's easily 3,000 to 4,000 layoffs. And the direct costs for the industry are $3 billion. That has nothing to do with indirect costs for all the towns, villages, and cities that rely on oil and gas jobs to pay for everything else. Not jobs, layoffs, and then more layoffs. That's the immediate effect.
Okay, we'll be right back. Tom Korski is with us. He's the managing director at Blacklock's Reporter. When we return, sparks fly in a committee hearing over secret talks to move the date of the election. Of course, very controversial. The government claims, well, it's about Diwali. It's about Diwali. That's why we moved the election. And it has nothing to do with all of these MPs who will qualify for the MP's pension because that election date was moved. More on that when we come back with Tom Korski from Blacklocks. This is News Radio.
There is no question Rob won't get answered.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues
on News Radio.
Back with Tom Korski. Tom Korski, of course, is the managing editor at Blacklock's Reporter. So, Tom, how did it come to pass that the date for the 2025 general election was moved to October 27th instead of October 20th?
Well, there was a meeting. It was a confidential meeting, and it was between Liberal and New Democratic Party organizers, and they decided to, as you mentioned, defer the date. It's a statutory date under the Canada Elections Act of the next general election, latest possible date, to Monday, the 27th of October, 2025. And the reason that they did that was, as you mentioned, was because, so Cabinet said, it didn't want to ruin festivities for observant Buddhist, Hindu, and Sikh members of the community who wanted to celebrate the Festival of Lights. Something else interesting happened. On Tuesday, October 21st, 2025, something very special happens for 28 men and women who happen to be Liberal and New Democrat MPs of Parliament who are two-termers. They suddenly qualify for the minimum 6 years requirement to get their pension. How much is the pension worth? Currently, it averages $78,000 a year. Not too shabby. Problem: the old election date cut them off one day before pension eligibility. Well, you can imagine there were people suspicious that this may not have anything to do with the Festival of Lights, Rob. There was, even the Cabinet has admitted, there's now some controversy attached to that bill.
Well, among those calling this suspicious is Conservative MP Eric Duncan. And we have some audio here. He was questioning the Public Safety Minister, Dominic LeBlanc. He was called to testify about this changes to the Election Act. So this is Dominic LeBlanc being questioned in committee by Conservative MP Eric Duncan.
NDP party headquarters staff were invited and attended those meetings. That is completely inappropriate of what happened there, where one political party was given access to information and documents and crafted a bill. But I'll go back again. The whole point that now the NDP absolutely wants to ignore and forget about was the changing of the election date. Was it a Liberal idea or an NDP idea to move back the election by a week so it guarantees any defeated Liberal and NDP MPs their pension? Whose idea was it, the Liberals or the NDP?
So again, you're a very clever clip you just got for some post that you may do later. But I think it's important for people to understand that pension entitlement had nothing to do with that decision to move the date. I'm lucky enough, I was elected in 2000, so it certainly wasn't my idea to be concerned about pension entitlement for myself. We think that Diwali is an important moment for a very significant community in Canada. There are municipal elections in the province of Alberta on that date. We worked with Elections Canada on a number of different scenarios of different dates. But as I said, Mr. Duncan, in order to reassure you that the little premise of your question, which you fabricate, wasn't the case, we would welcome this committee's judgment in moving the date and would welcome that when you get to the clause by clause, feel free to work with colleagues if you're so outraged.
Right. Okay.
That's funny.
It doesn't hold water, though. Right. The problem that I've always had with this is it if you're so worried about the Festival of Lights, okay, legitimate concern. You don't want to, you wouldn't have the general election on Christmas Day, for crying out loud. I can appreciate this. Okay. So if you're worried about that, why not have it a week early or 2 weeks early?
There's a Bloc MP of all people who proposed an even simpler remedy. Vote in an advance poll. They have those for a month before the general election date. Millions of us vote in advance polls because we're going to be busy on election day. Not hard.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure there's nothing to see there.
No, there's nothing.
It's only, what's $77,000 a year after 6 years of service, fully indexed to the rate of inflation.
Who are we? Who are we to criticize?
Okay. Look, let's wrap up on this. The government has a very ambitious program, of course, for EVs, tens of billions of dollars for EV factories, and a multi-billion-dollar plan for an electric vehicle charging station network, a network all across the country of EV charging stations. How's that going?
Well, there's some bad news here, Rob. They estimate, this is the Department of Natural Resources, they estimate they need about 447,000 public charging ports. 447,000, and remember that number, right across the country. This vast network, as you mentioned, of charging stations, because we're all going to have to buy an electric. Unfortunately, only 29,000 public charging ports have been installed to date. So that comes to about 6%. 94% of target, still to go, costs budgeted so far $1.2 billion. So $1.2 billion for 6%. So to get 100%, I'm doing some rough math, it comes to about $1 zillion we're going to have to need for our public charging network.
Right. So it's going about as well as the plan to plant 2 billion trees, Tom.
Bad news, Rob. They are not hitting that target on the trees. It's sad. It's just a sad news story.
All right. Great to hear from you this week. Enjoy your weekend. Tom Korski, always fun. Yeah. Tom Korski, minding Ottawa's business. Aren't you glad somebody is? I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. It's News Radio.
You have questions.
Now You Know with Rob Snow has the answers.
On News Radio.
Here with David Smith on a Friday. David, we made it.
Yes, we did.
We made it. So look, if you're ever looking for a podcast for our show, Now You Know with Rob Snow, we do have a great new mobile app. We'd like you to try it out. It's going to help you hear our show whenever you want to, at your leisure. It is called the Seeker app. That's Seeker, spelled Seekr. All kinds of exclusive audio that you won't hear anywhere else. In addition to our show, all kinds of news, music, sports, and you can download Seeker for iOS or Android. Seeker, spelled Seekr. And Now You Know with Rob Snow is on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. So please try that out and give us a listen. Give us a try. Congratulations to Calgary getting the 2026 Grey Cup, David. That was announced today.
How about that? That must be very exciting for a city like Calgary. Absolutely. I wish they'd have the Grey Cup here. That would be great.
Well, the last time we had the Grey Cup here was a lot of fun. You remember?
Fantastic. Absolutely.
Shania Twain coming out, being pulled by a dog sled. Like, is there anything more Canadian than that?
That was awesome.
That was amazing.
I kind of forgot about that. Yeah.
Dogs. But a lot of people, because it was Calgary versus Edmonton to host those were the two bidding cities for the 2026 Grey Cup. This year's Grey Cup is being held in Vancouver, and the conference finals are being held this weekend. But it was between Edmonton and Calgary to host the 2026 Grey Cup, and our sports people in Calgary were telling us, we don't think it's going to be Calgary because the CFL said Calgary Stadium is no good. McMahon Stadium is no good. You can't have a Grey Cup until you get a new stadium. So many people thought it was going to be Edmonton, and here we have this surprise that it is actually going to be hosted by Calgary for the sixth time. But the commissioner of the CFL, who's retiring, Ambrosi, said, hopefully it's the last time we'll hold the Grey Cup in this stadium, and that the next time we have the Grey Cup in this stadium, it'll be a big, beautiful new stadium. Even though no plans have been announced about upgrading McMahon Stadium or tearing it down and building a new stadium, I can tell you what, just based on the experience of trying to do that, it is an arduous task.
Don't get me started. We have our woes with that here in Ottawa as well. But yeah,
yes, we
built
do.
Built in 1960, if you can believe
so
it.
So it's old. Right, that's old.
It's pretty old. Get this, though. When they built that thing in 1960, it cost, in $1960, it cost $1 million to build. That's it.
$1 million. That's it.
Think about the cost of building an arena now.
I bet you the utility bill for that place is $1 million now.
Yeah, probably.
But I'll tell you, the Ottawa experience with trying to, I mean, our stadium was old when it was built back in, I think it was in 1967 or something. And it was 5 years of lawsuits.
Yeah.
Because it involved public money and private money and all kinds of outrage. You know, should taxpayers' money be going into private interests who own sports teams? All of this stuff. They only ended up renovating really one side of the stadium, and now they're trying to renovate the old side of the stadium that dates back to the 60s, and it's the same thing over and over and over again. It's very difficult. And it's not just football stadiums, you know, it's hockey arenas, all kinds of people always having this debate, and what role any kind of public money should go into any kind of stadium development. So, last golf round of the season for you tomorrow.
Yes. Cue the violins and the sad music. Yes. The course closes tomorrow, so I'm going to go out at about 2:30 Eastern time. Sun sets at like 5 Eastern time. So I got to play like
get 18 in.
I got to play like 18. I don't know, 7 holes. Might as well though. Might as well. It's the last time I'll be able to golf until March. So
yeah, if you're lucky, David.
That time of year.
Okay. Talk back coming up right after the news. It's a Friday free-for-all, so we're wide open on topics. It's been very busy in the news this week, and we've been coming up with a lot of topics. There's a lot to talk about, but pick a topic, and we'll follow your lead. That's how we roll on the Friday free-for-all talk back at 1-833-668-2577, and we're back right after the news.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to Talk Back. 2 hours of debate and discussion on the big issues of the day. And today it is the Friday free-for-all. And that's our favorite day of the week around here because we're close to the weekend and because we don't come up with the topics. We've been doing that all week. So today it's your turn. Tell us. What's on your mind and what do you want to talk about? You want to talk about something that's been in the news? Give us a call. You want to talk about something you think should be in the news? Give us a call. Whatever it is, we are open to hearing about it and we will follow your lead. It has been a very, very busy week in the news business. No shortage of material to work with today, everyone. 1-833-668-2577. That's our call-in line. 1-833-668-2577. We had the U.S. election. It has come and gone. The win by Donald Trump. He's back. Donald Trump victorious over Kamala Harris. That surprised some people. It came as no surprise to others. Some think it's great. Some think it's not so great, to put it mildly. We've been talking about that all week from all kinds of different angles. If you want to jump right back into it, we can talk about it again today. I think, it's just my own opinion, I think the biggest story in Canada this week, outside of the U.S. election and all the implications that could have for Canada, I think the biggest story in the week in this country is this battle between the Alberta government and the Trudeau Liberals in Ottawa over the future of our oil and gas industry. The Trudeau Liberals, in their infinite wisdom, want this country to be the only major oil and gas producing country in the world to have an emissions cap on that one industry, the oil and gas industry. And I would really like your opinion on that. I would really like to know how wise you really think that is, especially now, given what just happened in the United States and the pending return of Donald Trump to the White House. Is it really wise to do that? What else is going on? Well, Wayne Gretzky is in the news. The great one, number 99, Wayne Gretzky. Wayne Gretzky went to Donald Trump's victory party at Mar-a-Lago on election night. He was there with his wife and with his son-in-law, the famous golfer, Dustin Johnson, and his wife, Wayne Gretzky's daughter. And there are pictures. There's Wayne Gretzky, and he's wearing a MAGA hat. And some Canadians don't like that. They don't like to see a Canadian icon at a Trump victory party. Now, I would remind you that Wayne Gretzky's never hidden the fact that he leans conservative. He endorsed Stephen Harper for prime minister back in 2015. Didn't help Prime Minister Harper win that election, but he endorsed Prime Minister Harper. Wayne Gretzky spoke at the funeral for Brian Mulroney. And now Wayne Gretzky, he is getting a lot of flack on social media for going to this event, this victory party for Donald Trump. I'd like to know what you think about it. What do you think about Wayne Gretzky going to Trump's victory party? I could care less, personally. Wayne Gretzky's a private citizen, private views. He should be allowed to have his own political beliefs. Really none of my business. What do you think? What do you think? We have a lot of listeners in Halifax and the surrounding region. We're on the air there every day. Nova Scotia is having a provincial election right now, snap election, early election. Tim Houston, the PC premier, he's the favorite, right, to win another big majority government. Love to hear from callers in Halifax, get your sense of how you think that campaign is going so far. I call it, especially this PC campaign, I call it a trinkets campaign. It's just trinkets. I'm just following it from away, but I did grow up in Nova Scotia. I'm from Cape Breton Island originally, and I see the Houston campaign. They're kind of doling out these shiny objects to the voters, little populist promises. We're going to take the tolls off the bridges. We'll give you free parking at the hospitals. Same thing, by the way, is happening in Ontario, where Ontario Premier Doug Ford's going to call an early election. He's running a kind of a trinkets campaign too. Beer in corner stores. Rip up bike lanes. Going to give everyone $200. Now that kind of stuff can work. It just doesn't get you very far on the big stuff and the important stuff. And what's the big stuff and the important stuff? The big stuff and the important stuff is fixing healthcare, building more affordable housing, improving the education system. So to the listeners in Nova Scotia, what have you thought of your election campaign? Give me a call. And I wouldn't mind talking about EVs. That's always a hot topic. I was scrolling through my Twitter feed the other day. I came across a clip of Elon Musk, owner of Tesla, who helped Donald Trump win the election. And in the clip, Elon, in fact, David, why don't you just play the clip, Elon Musk, if you can play that for me. He's speaking to the Wall Street Journal, and he says he's not in favor of government subsidies for EVs or for charging stations, networks of charging stations. Roll the tape, David.
We don't need the $7,500 tax credit. I would say, honestly, I would just can this whole bill. Don't pass it. That's my recommendation.
What about the support though for the charging network? I mean, there are parts of this bill. And no.
No, I mean, do we need support for gas stations? We don't. So there's no need for this for support for a charging network. I would delete it. Delete.
Okay, all right.
I'm literally saying get rid of all subsidies, but also for oil and gas.
Get rid of all subsidies, including oil and gas, but it is in the EV sector. That got me thinking, think of all the money we're spending on EVs, trying to build factories for EVs. It's tens of billions of dollars. And we're doing that because the Biden administration is doing that. And we wanted to go toe-to-toe with the United States. But now there's going to be a new administration, a second Trump administration. And one of the central figures in Trump's orbit says, I'm not in favor of all these subsidies for EVs. The guy created Tesla. So you can't help but wonder, what if there's a reversal in EV policy down there? Did we just waste like boatloads of money on EV factories? So like I said, there's a lot to work with. Comment on any of those issues or something else entirely for that matter, because it is the Friday free-for-all. 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. If you've never called before, just mention that to David. He's screening the calls today. You'll speak to him before you go on the air. We'll make your call a priority. Talk back on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Friday free-for-all talk back, so we're wide open on topics. We'll follow your lead today. Dan in Red Deer, thanks for calling. Dan, what's on your mind?
Hi there. How you doing?
Good, thanks, Dan. Go ahead.
Good. I got a few things. You can just cut me off whenever you want. First one would be moving this election date. It's absolutely crazy. They honestly think we're all idiots. There's early poll voting for that exact reason. There's no sense. It's a waste of time, waste of money to move the date. And, they just think we're all idiots. Second one would be the PD days in school. To me, it's getting out of control. There's PD days every second week or twice a month. Right now in Alberta, there was Thursday, Friday PD days for public schools, and there was just one after Halloween. To me, there's lots of time for teachers to learn either on a weekend, take a Saturday every month, or come 2 weeks before school starts in September, work 3:30 to 6 p.m. to get all this learning done instead of shutting schools down every few weeks. I'm not sure if you have anything.
Well, the only thing I would add is it sounds a lot like the way it happens in Ontario, because isn't it a curious coincidence that the PD day always lands on either a Friday or a Monday, or if Friday is a holiday, then the PD day is Thursday, or if Monday is a holiday, maybe Tuesday's the PD day, and everybody, it's kind of like an extra long weekend for everybody.
Yeah, like it's a 5-day weekend now.
Right. Yeah, it's crazy.
Kids. So I just think it's getting out of control.
Yeah.
And, all these parents got to find alternate childcare and so on.
Exactly. So a lot of inconvenience. Yeah.
School is short enough. The teachers get holiday every single holidays, weekends, summers. There's a lot of time to learn in between there, I think. So. And then the last thing would be U.S. election. All the media is kind of up in arms. Oh, how could the polls be so wrong? How could this have happened? To me, it just goes to show you how out of touch the media is on what's actually going on. The election is kind of the one time you can see exactly how the whole country is feeling. And, if you turn on the news anytime between the last 2 months, you would think that, Donald Trump's the worst person in the world. He's going to lose. There's no way he's going to win. Harris is, all this, all that. And then, so they're obviously either not reporting properly because the majority of Americans, voted for him, or they're pushing their agenda that, they don't want him in. And, so to me, the proof is in the pudding. They're obviously out of touch on pretty much, on their reporting.
All right, Dan, I'm going to jump off now. We've got some other callers that we want to get to. You have a great weekend. Thanks for your call and getting us going here. Chris in Martins Point, Nova Scotia. Good to hear from you again. Chris, what's on your mind this week?
Hey, Rob. Thanks for taking my call, brother.
You're welcome.
Just a quick comment on this election. I think it's a bloody waste of money, which we don't have a surplus of right now in this province.
Right.
I think Tim Houston is a snake. The only reason he's calling the snap election is because it's going to benefit him and his party. So, so much for his word. That just tipped his hand there. But anyways, we're going to get saddled with it. We're going to have it whether we like it or not. But the reason I called in is the only thing that I found very disturbing about Donald Trump being elected is Canada's seeming obsession to the point where people are saying they need therapy because Donald Trump got elected.
Yeah,
I don't see it. We've already more than survived one term with this guy, and the heavens didn't open up, and the four horsemen of the apocalypse didn't come riding over the horizon. So I don't understand it. I think I was more upset with George Bush Jr. and his treatment of Canada than I am with Donald Trump. Trump is bombastic and whatever, but you know what you're getting with this guy. And I just don't see it. Like, we've got so many issues, like critical issues right now in our own country, in our own backyard. And I think it's a case of, it's like people who they point to other people with their problems and other things like that because it's deflection. They don't know how to deal with their own problems, so they deflect onto somebody else and say, "Oh my God, look what's happened down there. Oh, it's terrible and that." But you look at our own country; we got some major issues happening here. And
yes,
if
we do. Yes, we do.
We don't address them, we're in trouble, right?
Yeah, and we might have a whole host of other issues because of the election of Donald Trump and the current government that we have in Ottawa, sir. And I might talk about some of those as we make our way through the day today. I thank you for your call, Chris. Hang in there. Have a great weekend. Chris in Martins Point, Nova Scotia. I'm Rob Snow. It's Talkback Friday, free for all. Pick a topic, we'll roll with it. Okay, 1-833-668-2577. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Open line, open topic, Friday, free for all Talkback here on News Radio. James in Nova Scotia. You're on the air, James. What's on your mind?
Hello. Gina.
Hello. Hi, James.
I've been listening all week, and I'm really concerned about all our media in Canada. It's getting kind of obvious how much government funding is controlling our media.
Okay.
Focus on the American election is, I'm not a fool. It does affect us in some ways, but not near as the corruption that's going on in the Liberal government and the federal department right now. And as a proud Canadian, we need to stand up like we did with the trucker rally in Ottawa a number of years ago. We need to do that again and find out these names of these politicians and the foreign inclusion in our elections here in this country, and stop worrying about whatever else is going on at every else place in the world and spending billions of dollars to all these other problems when we got major problems here. And it's very discouraging to hear after the election that people want to move out of the United States because of their electoral votes. The majority of the votes went in their opposite favor, and they want to move to Canada. I feel like moving down there.
Okay.
We're losing our way drastically here in Canada, and we're so divided because we're an open country. We're all immigrants from one form or another. I'm a third-generation Canadian, but my family migrated here. But we've all made it, Canada, the great place that it is. And we're losing its integrity by catering to emotional ideology. And when COVID was going on, I felt like I want to leave. But now I see the more value in getting out and getting more involved in the electoral process and voting and trying to get more people to pay attention to what's going on. Educate yourself on all sides. I don't care who you vote for or who's in power, as long as you have integrity and accountability, and we have none. And we vote with the hope that the next person that comes in has that, but we're fools. to the game. Until we have a real leader in this country to stand up, like I kind of agree, you have to look. I'm not sure if I like Poilievre or not, but I have to agree. Not reading that information makes him look better in my eyes, because if he doesn't read it, he's not silenced. Or is that just a political game too?
Right. Okay. You sound very discouraged about the state of the country.
I am a very proud Canadian. There was some news here in my community about a high school wanting to not allow soldiers or military people to wear their dress uniforms to
Yes, we talked about that in the last hour of our program.
I just find that so disgraceful.
Yeah. Well, they backtracked on that after the.
They sure did, and Tim Houston finally grabbed himself appropriately and stood up for our Nova Scotians. So I do have that kind of to be proud of.
His opponents are going to be all over him, saying he's exploiting that situation or whatever. So.
Yeah, I thought that too. But we have his opposition candidate coming out saying that they need to have a new minister for women's health. Like, we're bloated as a government as it is. We need less government, not more of it.
Okay. All right. You feel better?
A little bit.
A little bit? Okay.
See ya.
Glad I was here to help. Try and have a good weekend. Okay. Bye-bye.
You too. Great.
Friday Free for All Talk Back. I'm Rob Snow. Give us a call right after the news on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
You take the lead today. It's the Friday Free for All Talk Back. Eric in Halifax. Hello, Eric.
Hey, good afternoon, Rob. How are you?
I'm good, Eric. Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I'm going to leave the most important part of this conversation to the end. First of all, I was brought up in Sydney, Nova Scotia. Secondly, Winnipeg and Montreal in the Grey Cup, because I like Randy Oliveras.
Okay.
And Wayne's great, but geez, a couple of months ago, give and take, him and McDavid were promoting gambling. I mean, that says a lot for them two guys. And as far as Nova Scotia elections go, I will vote for anyone who will fight for rent control. And here's the best one of all.
Yeah.
Don't knock the people in uniforms. Remember this. Those people in uniforms gave us the freedom we enjoy today, and that's all I have to say. I remember those guys every day, and I wear a poppy every day. I just don't wear it on November the 11th. You have a great weekend, and tell David, have fun on the golf course.
Okay. I'm gonna thank you. That's very well said by you, Eric. And I think Toronto's going to beat Montreal in the East Final. I think Montreal's been resting too much. They have some injuries, and Toronto's hot at the right time. So I'm taking Toronto in the East. Anyway, Matt in Red Deer. Matt, hello.
Hi.
Matt.
I just wanted to touch base because your first caller was talking about the PD days about teachers and such.
Yeah.
And how the kids are like never in school.
Yes.
What do the teachers do during the summer? I know they take a couple weeks at the end of August to start prepping for their school year, but what do they do for the other 6 weeks?
Well, I imagine they're on vacation, aren't they?
Well, probably. So I don't know anywhere else that gets 6 week vacation and then paid days off in the national holidays. Why can't they use that for their professional development days?
I don't know. It's a mystery to me, sir.
So, or one other step, because I'm a subcontractor. So if I'm not at work, I gotta find someone to work for me. Isn't that what substitute teachers are for?
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, it's a PD day. It's professional development. They're supposed to get experts in there and learn about the teaching profession and how to deal with students and all of this stuff. I guess is what they're doing.
No,
I mean, it's not technically it's not technically a day off for them. It's just that they don't have students in the class, right? I wonder if you add it all up. I'd like to know this. Like here in Alberta, I used to have a figure for Ontario many years ago. It wasn't a very big figure. If you take it if you take everything into consideration, all the days off, all the holidays, all the PD days, Christmas, March break, summer, everything. How many days actually out of the year are students actually in a classroom learning?
I honestly
I'd love
don't
somebody
know.
to do that math for me. Somebody pull up a school calendar from your local school or school board and tell me how many days out of the year is your child in a classroom learning something?
I wonder if you would look at it the same as like an employment issue from the CRA standpoint. You probably wouldn't make enough to qualify for EI.
You need so many weeks, right? Yeah. I don't know. All right. Thank you, man.
Well,
good to hear from you. Yeah, you too. Bye-bye. John in Halifax up next on Talkback. Hi there, John.
So, Bud, I'm cranky too. Can you help me?
I'll try.
All right. Immigration. I know it's
Yes.
a touchy subject. I'm Aboriginal.
Right.
I'm really concerned about this state of the country when it comes to bringing too many from one country. Now, the reason I'm saying that is that, like, say East India, they're 1.4 billion. We only have 40 million. And, right now they're bringing too many in. I like to see a diversity of Asia and Africa and places where, people want to come to get away from, the problems there. But when it comes to immigration, you bring too many things. Now we're having fights at mosques and at temples, and it's all being brought into our country. And we don't believe in that. We believe in, being together. Like, you know what I mean? Like being as one, right? Multinational country, right?
Multicultural, yeah.
Too much. Yeah, cultural. We're getting too many from one group. And, there's Thailand, there's other places we go. And get them as carpenters or...
Well, it's a tinderbox now as you can appreciate between two groups of... I wouldn't even say six. I would say... Khalistanis, okay?
Yes.
The vast majority of Sikhs do not support the Khalistan movement for a separate state for Sikhs in Punjab, right?
Yeah,
so at the same time, you have Sikhs who don't like the idea that the Indian government is hiring. This is the allegation. They're hiring gangsters to knock off Sikhs in Canada. So you can imagine, right? Yeah. How this all boils over, right? It hasn't been all peace, love, and harmony in this country over the years. You know that.
No,
right?
things are changing. Things are changing big time, and we better hang on, or we're going
to. I don't know if you maybe you misunderstood me. It hasn't been all peace, love, and harmony over the years in this country. Right. Even before it was as diverse as it is now. I grew up in a time in Cape Breton Island, sir.
Yes.
And yes. I don't know how old you are. I'm in my 50s. Yeah, there were tensions and divisions between Catholics and Protestants back then.
Yes, that's what I got to agree with you. Yeah, I never even thought about that. And Quebec, the tensions there.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Okay. No, thank you. Yeah. You made me feel a little better.
Just something to think about. Okay, John? Something to think about. You too, John. Yeah. I appreciate your call, sir. Thank you. We'll stop here. Be right back. Go right back to Red Deer is a popular stopping point for the talkback today. And Michael is in Cape Breton. We'll take your call as well, Michael. If you hang on the line, it's talkback on a Friday. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
We're dancing to your drum today. It's the Friday Free for All Talkback. George is in Halifax. George, go ahead, George.
Hi, Rob. How are you?
I'm good, George. Thanks. What's on your mind?
I guess I'm going to put my 2 cents in on the American election, although I'm sure it's been beat to death. I think that the reason that everything went the way it did, and I think it will probably follow suit here in Canada, is like the left government was just pushing too many social agendas, and it seems like people on the left are really yelling it out. I have a wife who was a social media influencer, and she seemed to move to the left and then got loud about the left, and me being leaning right, I would say. I always felt like I couldn't say anything without getting someone upset, whether it was truth or a non-truth. But I think that, people voted. It's where it laid, and, that's sort of where we were. And the thing with Trump's whole, exiting everyone out of the country, and everyone's concerned here in Canada about the influx of, refugees we may have at our borders. We already have like 2,500 people daily coming up from the States. And I mean, there would be a huge influx, but after that, if they can't move up the United States to get to Canada, that 2,500 is going to be zero, or at least a low number. So although we may have a huge influx if we, let in the right people, and I know right people doesn't sound right, but people that will benefit our country in ways, him cutting borders down there is just going to slow migration here, in my opinion.
Okay, well, I think the big issue that confronts Canada now on the immigration front is what is going to happen if Trump follows through somehow, some way, on deporting millions of illegal immigrants from the United States. I think it probably sounds easier said than done. I don't know, but he certainly sounds serious about doing it. Are significant numbers of people going to try and make it into this country? Think about this. If illegal immigrants in the United States think that they're going to get a knock on the door some night and they're going to be sent to some camp somewhere and then they're going to be deported, what are the chances they're going to stick around? So maybe they do pack up and head to the Canadian border. This is what happened after 2016. As I said in my opening statement, at the last time Trump got elected, we saw this happening at Roxham Road, where that irregular border crossing was between Quebec and New York State. Over 2 years, 113,000 people, sir, in 2 years.
Well, I would say that it would be time for Canada to finally, have a backbone. I know it's tough to turn people around on a personal level, and everyone I've met who migrated here on a personal level has been fantastic. That doesn't take away from the problems that we're having in our country, though. Like, on an individual level, I always feel bad, with some of the ways that I think, but it's just harder than that. You got to save yourself before you save someone else. And right now, if we're a country, we're drowned, and we got to take a step back and, assess our situation, in my opinion. And, if these people come to the border, we got to do something to either pick and choose who we want and turn other people away and let them be America's problem, make them go south.
Well, it's not just that. It's actually, that's the agreement we have with the United States right now. I thank you for your call, George. Thank you. Yeah. That's just how it works. If someone comes into Canada from the United States, where they have made an asylum claim in the United States, right now, the way it works, all they have to do is cross into Canada, stay at a site for 2 weeks. They can make an asylum claim here in Canada. And once they make a claim, they have to have a hearing before the Immigration and Refugee Board. There is a years-long backlog of cases at the Immigration and Refugee Board already. And if the claim is denied, which it would be, they will launch an appeal, which is another years-long process. I mean, this is an issue. The Liberals are trying to downplay it. It's an issue, and they should be getting ready. Team Trudeau says, don't worry. Well, we'll see. Michael in Cape Breton. Hi, Michael.
So much for a feel-good Friday.
Well, it's not Feel-Good Friday. It's a free-for-all Friday, and it's been a heavy-duty news week.
White Anglo-Saxons that are called in, they're pretty upset over nothing. They don't got to worry about nothing. When they elect Chucky as the new Prime Minister of Canada, all their grief will go away. But until that time, tell them to bend over, and when Chucky gets...
You know what? Look, Michael, I am so tired of you calling me and you coming up with the same old crude lines to telling people to bend over. So until you come up with... No, listen. It's not the Michael and Cape Breton show. Until you come up with some new material that is not so crude, don't call me back. I'm stopping here. I'm going to take a deep breath, maybe a sip of tea here. I'm Rob Snow. It's Now You Know. It's Talkback on News Radio.
Something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Friday free for all Talkback hour. Norma in Calgary. No, Cambridge. Sorry, Cambridge. Norma. Hi there, Norma.
Hi. Listen, I just called to. I'm sitting here in my bus, warming it up, getting ready for afternoon pickups, and I thought I'd answer your question about the number of days the teachers actually are in the school classroom.
Right, with students, teaching students was my question.
Right.
Yeah.
There are 187 instructional days.
Okay.
They get 7 PA days.
Right, and they're probably all on a Friday or a Monday, I would suspect, right?
Yeah, I guess, the majority of them, just looking at them here, are on a Friday or a Monday. Yes, correct.
Right.
Yep, there's 10 board-designated holidays.
Okay.
So, like March break and that sort of thing. And then there's 10 statutory holidays.
Right, okay.
But 187 instructional days.
Instructional days. Okay,
right.
Very interesting. David was looking up in the Calgary Board of Education. The number is 181 instructional days when students are actually in class learning, and 200 operational days. So 19 days when the teachers are in the school, but there are no students in the school. So, I mean, one way to look at it would be a school year, in quotation marks, air quotes, a school year is actually really about 6 months of instruction.
Right. Yeah.
Do you think that's, do you think it's enough? Too much? Too little? 180 days?
Who's to say? I don't know. I think.
Well, I don't know. Some countries, they do year-round school. Students go to school year-round.
Yeah, I don't think that. I know there's been some discussion about having a shorter summer break. I personally don't think that would work, because then the parents are going to be all trying to go on holidays at the same time. So it creates problems with, work schedules and everybody trying to take holidays at the same time. So I don't know. It's been this way forever. Like, as long as I can remember, it was this way back when I was going to school, and that was many, many, many years ago. So I can't see it changing anytime soon.
All right. Thank you. Safe travels today on the roads in your school bus. Really appreciate the call. In Cambridge, in Ottawa. Keith in Ottawa. Hi there, Keith.
Hi, how are you?
Well, I'm good, Keith. What's on your mind?
I don't trust. I think there will be a lot of coming north to Canada. I think a lot of them will feel just have to go up to Canada, wait 4 years till Trump has finished his term, and then head back down. So I think
and then go back. Okay.
That's going to be the reason. I don't trust, especially this government. Look what happened with that Sikh that was murdered in India supposedly by the Indian agents. He was over here. He was supposed to be deported. How long did it take them? If they had deported him, all that mess wouldn't have happened. We wouldn't have been in all the trouble with the Indian government. So I just don't have any trust in how we can handle them. We're not handling them all now. So.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of problems, with immigration. They're trying to, I guess you could say, they're trying to put the toothpaste back in the tube when it comes to the immigration file. They're cutting all kinds of streams of immigration. They're cutting temporary residency spaces, student permits, temporary visas, all of these things.
Yeah.
Right. But what if now we have to confront this? If Trump is to be believed, and he does really plan to follow through on this and deport millions of people.
On the TV today, an American channel, he was saying they expect a lot of these people so they don't have to go through all this trouble. are going to leave on their own. But where are they going to go? That's my worry, is they'll come up to Canada for
right.
Think they
and just given the situation right now, what is the capacity of the country to deal with yet another influx of people coming to Canada, this time from the United States? And let's face it, you're not supposed to be able to come to Canada and make a refugee claim from the United States. Fleeing Buffalo, New York, and coming to Canada and say, I'm a refugee because I don't like Donald Trump, is a lot different than, say, a convention refugee. Someone fleeing a civil war, a natural disaster, a gay person trying to escape Iran, where you can be killed for being gay. Better hope the government is ready for this.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Friday, free-for-all talk back. Last hour of the week for us. So tell us what's on your mind and what you want to talk about. Lots of material to work with this week, that's for sure. Dick in Calgary. Thanks for calling, Dick, and hanging in there. Good to hear from you.
Hi, I'm going to try to make mine quick because I know you're busy. But first thing I've got to say is Remembrance Day. When you told us that school told them not to bring the uniforms, that's embarrassing. The proudest day of my life was my the first parade that I got to march in, and when in my uniform on Remembrance Day. My dad was in the RCAF, and he taught me that war was horrible. But I still believe that we should be proud of our veterans, and we're the
absolutely, sir. Absolutely, sir.
I think that should be taught in school. My wife is an immigrant, and it took me years. We've been married 15 years, and this is the first year that she actually took a poppy. I got a comment about teachers. I know that they get a lot of time off, and I know that they're stressed out. I know that from my experience, because I've got, including my daughter, four members of my family are teachers, and they do work long, hard hours.
Okay.
And the other thing I got to say is the election. People aren't stupid. Voters aren't stupid, and the election being put back a week is ridiculous. They could put it ahead a week, or
sure.
Like somebody said they could vote in the
in an advance poll.
In the advance poll, but people aren't stupid. They know what's going on. And that's all I got to say. And I think
so. You believe this, that they're moving it back a week because if it was originally held on the 20th, they'd miss out by 1 day getting their pensions, right? So that's why they.
That.
Yeah, you believe that.
Yeah, I believe that, and I believe that a lot of the voters believe that, and it should be an election issue.
Okay. I'm sure the Conservatives will try to make it an election issue. I thank you for your time, even though it will be beneficial to, I think it's about a dozen or so Conservative MPs as well. The Conservatives never mentioned that, of course. There will be Conservative MPs that benefit from that if they have their 6 years in service. Dick, I thank you for your call. We have about 3 lines available there, so if you want to give us a call, wait, it won't be too long. 1-833-668-2577, 1-833-668-2577 on Talkback. Mo in Calgary. Thanks for calling, Mo. You're on the air. Go ahead. What's on your mind?
Oh, hi. Hi. I just want to say, with Trump, I think people down there are stupid because he's going to cut health care and all sorts of benefits. And I'm more worried about Canada and with Trump adding more tariffs to our products.
Sure.
Sorry, I think that's my phone ringing. That is something that worries me.
Oh, yeah. I think it's
and with
something you should be worried about. Yes.
With immigration, I think we do have to, close our borders because there's too many people here that don't have housing, and we need to take care of our own. If we don't have enough housing, and that is through Canada, we need to get that housing for our own, people that live here and, can maybe get, a little bit more ahead. With Trudeau, I think he needs to get rid of the carbon tax because I think our country is pretty clean, air-wise and everything else, because it's just going to make it harder for us to pay our bills if he keeps wanting to get more money. Danielle Smith.
Mr. Trudeau, let me just come back to you.
Okay.
And I'm not saying I buy into this, but Mr. Trudeau says, whatever you're paying in the carbon tax, you're getting more money back from the government in the carbon tax through the rebates.
Oh, is there?
Well, that's what he says.
Oh, okay. Well,
you believe
hopefully that's all right. Well, no, I don't.
You don't? Okay. Right. See, neither do most people, but you can't tell a liberal that.
No. And
you're in Calgary. You're in Calgary, right?
I am.
A family of four in Calgary is getting in rebates $1,800 a year on the carbon tax. And Mr. Trudeau and Mr. Guilbeault and all the rest of them over there say, family of four in Calgary, there's no way they're paying $1,800 a year in carbon tax. Carbon tax is actually a money maker. It's a money maker. It's the best tax ever. It's actually a money maker for you.
But, I am, I don't even know how a family of four who can feed their family on what they get now. And with our rental prices are so high and our utilities and whatever, our food banks probably have more people in the past 2 years than they've ever had in history because people cannot make ends meet.
2 million visits a year. 2 million visits a year. It's never been that high.
No.
2 million. And a lot of people,
and our veterans,
a lot of them are not on social assistance. A lot of them are working for a living.
Well, they work 2 or 3 jobs, and they are working for a living. And then our veterans food bank is in trouble too. There's so many donations we need to make to just feed our population here in Calgary. And I just need, I don't know, how do you fix this with the rental prices and all this other stuff? I just am boggled, my mind is boggled. I just don't even know how to go forward. And I think with Danielle Smith, I don't think she's good for Alberta. And,
wow.
I think she's more of a Trump personality
all right.
than anything else. Oh, and Gretzky, I could care less if he went to Mar-a-Lago. Doesn't bother me.
Okay. All right. Well, at least you have some love for someone because you don't have a lot of love for a lot of the politicians. You don't like what Trudeau's doing. You don't like what Trump is doing. You don't like what Smith is doing. Okay. All right.
Well, and with,
you're a hard person to please.
Yes, I am.
Okay. Look, we got to go. It was great talking to you today. I appreciate your call. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye. Yeah. I'm Rob Snow. That's how the Friday free-for-all rolls around here. Let's talk back on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Charlie in Grey Highlands, you're on the Friday free-for-all Talk Back. What's on your mind today?
How you doing, Rob? Rob,
good,
a little bit about immigration. Years ago, about 50 years ago, Rob, I was an immigrant from Cape Breton, and not far from where you were born, and I came to Ontario. And I felt the same way. I guess a lot of guys are coming from India and different countries down in the Caribbean, all over the place. And it's not easy when you come to a place and got to try to survive. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And the thing is, if we need those people, I'm going to tell you right now, and this is the real me talking. I'm not prejudiced against anybody. But the thing is, we need the working people that are coming in because we haven't got Canadians to do the jobs. A lot of our families 20 years ago, 15, 20 years ago, they weren't having children, or they only have one or two children, and they went off to college and they got the high jobs. And a lot of these low-paying jobs, we need people to do them. We got manufacturing going on in Honda. We got outside of Kitchener, we got Toyota. We're making parts. We're doing this. We're doing that. I know a few people in business, and it's almost impossible to get help.
I understand that, but it also has to match the social capacity of the country. We also have to have housing. We have to have doctors. We have to have nurses. We have to have hospital beds.
Right.
We have to have desks and schools and teachers and all of this stuff, right?
Yeah,
and if you bring in
make money to pay for these people, and these people are all paying taxes.
I appreciate that. But
all the ones that are working, Rob, they're paying income tax.
Sure, and I'm sure most of the people who are not working probably want to work, but the Trudeau government takes a year to get a work permit. This is one of Doug Ford's major. This is one of Doug Ford's major complaints.
On the guys coming in here, I was in shopping there last week.
Charlie,
a fairly big chain store, Foodland store. And I pulled up at the meat counter, and I'm looking at a piece of steak was about $60. And this guy's one of his countries pulled up. I looked at him. I said, what do you think of that? He said, man, he says, the money I make, I can only look at it. I said, yeah, I've been here all my life, and I can only look at it. You know
I understand that. Yeah, I feel the same way. I can't remember the last time I had a good steak. I just can't afford it anymore. But
I know, but the thing is, we got to realize that those people coming in, eventually they'll blend in and everything is going to be okay, which is like years ago, we had a lot of Italians coming in, Greeks, Portuguese, everybody. Y'all built City Hall. I was down there. We were working like crazy. They were building sidewalks, everything, and their work kept me going. I was fixing those gravel trucks and cement trucks and old Mack trucks, putting them back together so they could haul gravel and concrete and everything.
But again, I come back to it. It has to match the capacity of the country to absorb the immigration, sir. Okay? 1.8 million people in a year. Charlie, do you really think Canada is equipped to deal with 1.8 million newcomers a year? 1.8 million? In a year?
But Rob, okay, if we cut down on the immigration coming in, then we get no jobs. A lot of these companies will pack up and move to South Carolina.
Charlie, I don't know. I'm not anti-immigration. I'm not anti-immigrant. I'm pro-immigration. All of this thing. The problem is the numbers. There's just the sheer volume. And look at what it's done to housing and rents and everything else. 1.8 million, Charlie. Like I spent 30 years. I spent 30 years in Ottawa. I spent 30 years in Ottawa. That's almost 2 Ottawas, right? It's crazy in 1 year. Okay, Charlie, I got you down. I understand your point. I appreciate it, and it's well said, sir. Thank you. In Alberta, Al is in Alberta today. Hi, Al. Oh, Al's not there. We shouldn't really take another call. We should stop here. Okay, let's stop here. And then that'll leave us lots of time to take all the calls before the bottom of the hour. If you're on the line, you'll get on the air before the bottom of the hour. I promise you that. I'm Rob Snow. It's Talkback, Friday Free for All on News Radio.
Something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Friday Free for All. Greg is in Kitchener today, calling from Kitchener. Hi, Greg.
How you doing, Rob? Happy Friday.
Same to you, Greg. Thanks for calling. What's on your mind?
Just a comment about the American election. I'm happy that Mr. Trump won.
Okay.
A lot of people might not like the person, but you have to admire his determination and his policies. There's a lot of over half the American voters spoke and saying they need a change. I think the left went way too far left, spent money like drunken sailors. all the money they're sending overseas, the immigration, those are all key points. And those are key points I think that Canada has as well for our upcoming election. And I'm going to steal a phrase that we have to make Canada great again with our next election. And there's lots of clothing out there for MCGA. I'm going to buy a hat. And it applies to us.
You're going to buy a hat? Really? You're going to buy a MAGA hat?
It's not a MAGA. It's a MCGA, Make Canada Great Again. And if you look on Amazon or anything, there's all kinds of sweatshirts, hats, clothing that have the Canadian flag saying Make Canada Great Again. Because, you know, and a lot of people are afraid of Trump's policies that are coming in. A lot of people are afraid of Poilievre's policies that might be coming in. But it's just like your house. If you're going to overspend for years and years and years, the only thing that can come next is fiscal restraint, and that hurts. So I think us as Canadians, we need to be prepared for some fiscal restraint when Mr. Poilievre wins the election, because we just can't be taxed anymore. We can't handle it.
Well, I think, you know, and I'm not going to go out and buy a Make Canada Great Again hat or anything like that, but I think there are certainly parallel issues in when you look at the United States and what Canada is confronting and what voters will be deciding on whenever the next election in Canada is. Cost of living, rents, mortgage rates. And, you know, a lot of people have been talking about immigration today. That never used to be an issue in Canada. Immigration. Never used to get calls about immigration. Like hardly ever. I've been doing talk radio for 25 years, call-in radio for half of that. I almost never got calls on immigration. People were satisfied with immigration, thought it was helpful to the country. And it's really kind of sad what the Trudeau Liberals have done with the immigration consensus in this country. So those are two issues. Certainly voters in Canada will be judging the Trudeau Liberals on both of those issues. And if you think Americans were angry about the state of affairs in their country, what does that say about what the Trudeau Liberals are going to have to face when they finally go to the polls?
Yeah, and
this election of Trump, I mean, this could be a harbinger for the Liberals. There are some Liberals who think, "Oh, this is going to be great for us." I was like, "Yeah, I don't think so." I kept thinking, it's probably going to be a lot worse for Mr. Trudeau than it was for Kamala Harris on election night. That would be my prediction right now.
Right, and there's one thing that Mr. Trump said in a lot of his rallies was, "Are you better off 4 years ago than you are today?"
Oh yeah, well that's a classic political question.
Sure, and Canada needs to ask themselves that, because I know I'm not.
Okay.
You know,
all right.
I'm
Thank
on
you, Greg. I want to fit in one more here, Greg. I got you. I want to fit in one more here. Let's go to Rob in Calgary. Rob. Hi there, Rob.
I'll spike it. No, half dark, half light. Sorry, Rob.
That's okay.
Yeah, regarding population and immigration population, what have you. You know, if you look back in the 70s, okay. Close on Friday. Sorry.
All right, Rob, you sort out whatever it is that you have to do. I'm having a tough time hearing you. If you want to hang on the line, I'll get David to talk to you during the news, and you know, hopefully you can get your affairs sorted out. But I can't be having you have a conversation with somebody else and then have a conversation with me, not during a call-in radio show. Andre in Kitchener, you hang on the line too, and I'll get to you right after the news, and we'll be in the final 30 minutes of Talkback for this week. There's still lots that we can talk about. Plenty of news this week to chew on. Or if there's something on your mind that hasn't been raised this week, bring it up here. That's why we do the free-for-all on a Friday. This is News Radio.
something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
In the home stretch of the Friday free-for-all for this week on Talk Back, let's try Rob again. Hello, Rob. Hello, Rob.
Hey, Rob. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Yeah, so basically I grew up in the 70s and the 80s, and Canada was the best place, in my opinion, in the world to live, and the best time to live in at that point. If you look at our economy and overall quality of life from the 70s and 80s compared to today, no comparison. My opinion, we don't need more people. We need smaller government and lower taxes.
Okay. And
sorry?
What made life in the 70s and 80s so much better than
it
is now?
If you had a job and you had the ability to purchase a home, you could do that. Today, you could have 5 years of university on top of your grade 12, and it's still difficult to buy a home. Most people are saying, average.
I don't even think you have to go back to the 70s and 80s for those. For that to be true, I mean, maybe go back a decade.
Years ago, in Calgary in the 80s, people, if you drop $5 out of your pocket, you'd keep on walking. Today, people are looking for quarters on the ground. You know what I mean? It's just a silly comparison, but that's what that's my point. Like, life was so much better then, and our population was probably half of what it is today. So to prove people who think we need more people, in Calgary, our water system is falling apart. We don't have the infrastructure to pay for it. We've got the money, but it's not getting done, and it just means our taxes are going to go up.
Right.
Again, our cost of living is just going through the roof. And
I don't know. I mean, I don't think you have to go back to the 70s and 80s. And if you talk to people who you say you grew up in that time, I would say I was a child of the 80s. I graduated from high school in the late 80s, so. If you think about the late 70s or early 80s, it was a tough time economically in Canada during those days. Very high inflation.
But at least it was affordable.
Tough recessions.
Everyone I knew.
Oil shocks, Lots of geopolitical uncertainty, right? A revolution in Iran, all kinds of crazy stuff going on.
Well, look at today. It looks like the whole, between Russia, Ukraine, Iran, Israel, the world is kind of a mess. I hate to sound so pessimistic.
Yes. It's very difficult. Yeah. It's very tumultuous time right now. I would agree with you there. I would agree. But this idea we don't need any more people, I mean, are you saying, do you drop the immigration to zero?
No. Just, if we, people live and die, right? So, if we lose 100,000 people due to passing, either from illness or old age, again, like he had said, controlled immigration. I mean, Trudeau himself admitted that they screwed up. They just let too many people in without having the infrastructure. Like you said, the hospitals, the doctors, the nurses, housing. It was just too much.
Okay. Thank you, Rob. I appreciate your time. Yeah, you too. Thanks for hanging in there. Andre is in Kitchener. Hi, Andre.
Hi, Rob.
Hi, Andre.
I can still call you Rob. I heard you on the election night. Man, oh man, you're a professional.
Well, I've been doing it for a while. That was a lot of fun to be part of the election night broadcast. Yeah, and that great team out of Toronto that we have. It was my first time working with them. It was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, you sounded natural.
It was a long day. It was a long day. I did my show. But it's not like we're breaking bricks. We're just playing on the radio, right? So it was interesting.
I'm a beginner. I'm very new in politics, but what's happening in the world, you got to keep your ears open. So I thank you and thank
you're welcome.
Rogers, I guess. But the reason I'm calling is about the problem that's happening. So with unfortunately, with the refugees, I feel bad because they are people. And again, good idea about planning. Sometimes things happen too fast. But what I'm scared is in United States, you said it very clear, they are not refugees when you come here, but you can get guns easier than you can get a job, right, in Canada. So especially through the West Coast, I heard there's a lot of entrance there. So my point is, now that we know this is happening, so that's the plan. So what? No, that's the idea. So what is the plan that we're going to stop it before it becomes chaos, right? Because we knew we.
Well, yeah, Andre, I think I understand what you're saying. Let me explain for the listeners, Andre, and I thank you for your call. I want people to think back to 9/11, okay, and the aftermath of 9/11. People may remember there were all kinds of rumors on the day of 9/11 and in the following days that some of the hijackers of those planes that crashed into the World Trade Center, that they may have come to Canada. There were all kinds of rumors flying all over. Where did they come from? Where did they come from? And there was concern in Canada at the time. My gosh, like if some of these people came from Canada, what is that going to mean for the Canada-U.S. border and the free flow of trade and the free flow of people across the Canada-U.S. border? It was of great concern to the Liberal government at the time, the Chrétien government. And John Manley struck an agreement with his American counterpart called the Safe Third Country Agreement. And under that agreement, if somebody came to, say, Canada and made an asylum claim, they couldn't then go to the United States and then make another asylum claim, because the asylum claim would have to be settled in the country where it was first made. And in Canada's case, we were a safe third country. And the same thing applies on the other side of the border. If somebody, say, came from whatever, Latin America, and made an asylum claim in the United States, they can't then come to Canada and cross the border at a place like Roxham Road and make an asylum claim here, because we have determined, despite Trump being in office, that the United States is a safe third country. So you can't come into Canada and say, I'm a refugee. I'm a refugee. No. You're in the United States. You're in a country that's democratic, that has free and fair elections. It's a rule of law country. It has a constitution. It has an independent judicial system. It upholds basic human rights. All of these things that we would, consider to be safe. So hating Donald Trump is not grounds for making a refugee claim from the United States in this country. That's just the way it is. That's the way it's supposed to be under our agreement with the United States. That agreement, in light of Trump's election on Tuesday, simply has to be enforced. Now, will the Trudeau government do that? We will find out in the weeks and months ahead. Thank you for your call, Andre. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. It's the Talkback. Friday Free for All on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Friday Free for All Talkback Hour. Kevin in Calgary. Thank you, Kevin, for calling. What's on your mind today, Kevin?
Rob, I just want to talk a little bit about immigration, the difference between when I was growing up and immigration now.
Right.
You hinted on when you were growing up, there was another fellow that talked about immigration then and now, and I can't comment on today's immigration because you're going to hang up on me, and I don't want you to do that because you're a very good guy. Okay. When I was growing up, we had, in our town, we had the Polish, the Croatians, the Germans, the Ukrainians, the Italians, the Portuguese. Sure. I grew up British, French. That's a weird combination, I know. It's not as bad as French, Italian, but we had those too. But everybody came together. We went to each other's little clubs. They had the Italian club. They had the Croatian club where they made their food, and everybody went there, and they had their galas, and they would separate the weekends, okay? So this weekend's at the Italian club. Next weekend is the Croatian club. And then the Finns were there, and the Swedes were there, and it was great. You don't get that anymore. You just don't. Immigrants are coming over. Please I hope I'm being respectful, but they don't. I don't know. I can't.
Right. This is a major concern. The public opinion research shows us. You feel that there's a lack of integration, right?
There is. Like when they all came to Canada, and when my people came to Canada, it was like, okay, we want to be Canadian. We don't see that a lot anymore. I'm not trying to disrespect anybody, but right. I personally don't see it. I don't feel it. I don't perceive it. When I was growing up, everybody went to the other clubs, the other food. It was all about food. It's like,
yeah.
And
I don't know. I can't really speak to that. I'm a white guy in his 50s. Like what do I know about these problems that are perceived out there about failing to integrate newcomers into Canada? I'm not sure. I'm not sure what to do.
I don't know because
even the extent of the problem.
They don't invite other people in. Well, they do, but it's once again my perception. It's only for certain occasions. Whereas when I was growing up, everybody wanted to share their food. They wanted to share their celebrations. Yeah, they had fundraisers. I'm just thinking out loud here. Okay, I wonder if this is maybe a generational thing. How old are you? 50s? I'm in
60s?
my 60s.
You're in your 60s. Maybe this is a generational thing.
I do believe so.
Maybe people.
David.
I know David is busy over there doing a million different things. Maybe for younger people, it's maybe this. It may. They don't have this kind of separation by culture, and there's a lot more. I don't know, integration of cultures because they've been immersed in it in school settings and social settings the way we weren't when we were growing up. The closest thing, look, where I grew up, it was very, it was homogenous, okay? It was as white as a quart of milk. I mean, the closest thing we had to a visible minority in my neighborhood was a guy from Portugal, right? Okay. So that was how the society that I grew up in. But I bet you, David, when he went to high school, it was probably very diverse.
Yeah, if I can make a statement, give you some context. The high school that I went to in the west end of Ottawa was the district school for a neighborhood called Bayshore, which has a very large Arab immigrant population. My high school was predominantly people who were not white.
Right.
Multi-generational Canadians, mainstream Canadian white people, however you want to describe it, were not the majority at my high school.
Right. And did everyone get along?
And everybody got along.
Or was it segregated?
Fine. No, not really. No.
Yeah, see, I think maybe a lot of this is generational then.
And we never really thought about it that
much.
Thought
about it.
It was just normal. You were just used to rubbing shoulders with people who didn't look like you.
And did you, partake in each other's culture? Food, cooking,
sure,
festivities, kind of things.
The Muslim Students Association would have fundraisers all the time and sell Lebanese meat pies and shawarma and all that stuff.
Right. Okay, interesting. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I didn't hang up on you, Kevin, but we do have to move along because we have to get to a couple of more calls before the top of the hour, but we'll have to stop here. I'm Rob Snow. It's News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
To Innisfil, Mel, you're on the air. Mel, what's on your mind today?
I'll try to be short and sweet.
Okay.
Anyway, we have to somehow put out information to educate voters because I got nothing else to do. I followed the American, both sides talking to each other or talking against each other. No sense and no reason for name calling and stuff like that. But anyway, a lot of the voters I listen to, both in Canada, in some of the provincial elections we've had, is the they're blaming the governments for the inflation. The inflation was a worldwide problem, in my belief, caused by the pandemic because of production, slowing down and demand staying up, so prices automatically went up, according to that supply and demand equation. And I think that's what happened to inflation. That does not explain the rising price of houses. That is an immigration problem where there are too many people looking for homes with a limited supply. And of course, again, supply and demand.
Inflation, if I could just interrupt, inflation is also caused by profligate spending. You would agree with that, right?
Oh, yes. The government's unnecessary taxation and spending is a big problem also. Right. And that is provincial and federal. And in our case, you
wouldn't deny that the enormous amount of money that flooded into the system, rightly or wrongly, because it was the government's decision to close the economy. It had to be there to support people, or we probably would have had a depression. But that was inflationary, right?
Oh, exactly.
Spending all of that money.
Well, it's the same thing. All these new programs, which my wife and I are eligible for, the dental and the optical and the medications and stuff, but that should not be universal.
No, it should be means tested,
on a certain maximum income or certain low.
Yeah, it should be means tested,
Yes.
It should not be provided to people who have the means.
Exactly. But that's the problem.
Yeah. I agree, sir.
I don't know who made that decision, whether the NDP made that decision and the Liberals just, in order to needing the support, they had to go along with it. But these universal programs, I think our health system in Canada really needs some kind of big revampation.
Yes, I would agree with you. Look, Mel, I appreciate your call today, and I'm glad you could get some remarks in. We do have to run, however, because I want to get to Mark in Calgary, and this will probably be the last call of the week. So get us to the weekend, Mark.
Well, hi, Rob. Thanks for taking my call. I was the last call, I think, the other day, too.
Okay.
I originally called about Trump and why he can't get a fair shake. He's one of the most, it seems like, the popular vote and people like him, but everywhere you go, it's all negative. That was my one call in, but after listening to you guys talk and stuff, and I drive around a lot, and I'm in southern Alberta, there is so much beautiful land here. Why, and I don't know, I hope this isn't a bad thing, but why not create a community for people coming to Canada, a community where they can go, and there's a lot of professionals coming in here that can, doctors, construction work, and create a community and build from there and educate them on how Canada works, and then bring them into society. I can only think coming into a big city or something like that, it might be difficult.
Okay. I wish we had more time. Maybe we could flush that out a little bit more. I'm not sure what you're getting at. Is maybe some kind of temporary community be very integrated into society. I don't know. It's been a long week. My brain's a little bit fried. Look, very busy news day today. Lots to bring you up to date on. Our great news teams have you covered for the rest of the day, and we're back on Monday with more Talk Back.